Hello, this is Jacqueline and welcome back to Jack Knits in video number 3 on Fair Isle knitting or stranded knitting. In the first 2 videos we talked about introduction to Fair Isle knitting, what it is about with this 2-color knitting, how to hold the yarn in your hands when you're knitting, how to read charts, and getting started. In the second video I showed you how to pick up those long floats in the back of your knitting while you're knitting, so you don't have really long strands of yarn that gets caught on things, and how to make a nice even knitting. So if you haven't watched those first 2 videos, I will have a link to the description below and also at the end of this video, so I encourage you to watch those so you can get a full explanation of that. But in this video I'm going to talk about how to correct a jog in your knitting when you're knitting in the round with Fair Isle knitting or with any type of 2-color knitting. And let me show you what I mean by that. In this hat I followed this really nice pattern where it has these nice diamonds and zigzags, but look what happens at the start and end of each round. You'll see that my round start is right here, and you'll notice very obviously that my pattern is off a little bit. My diamond is off, my zigzag is off by a row. And that happens because I am knitting one round, and when I get to that round, that last stitch of that pattern is up a row. So it jogs my pattern and breaks that up a little bit. So I'm going to show you in this video a little tip on how you can correct that and make it appear that your pattern is lining up correctly. Okay, so let me show you on this swatch here because I want to show you from the very start of your knitting. So here I've started a pattern and I've knitted the very first round of my Fair Isle knitting. So now I'm getting ready to start row number 2. And what you're going to do on the very first stitch of every round, and I've got my stitch marker here telling me that I'm at the beginning of the round, is that you're going to pick up the stitch below and place it on your needle and knit those 2 together. So here's what we're talking about. So see my knit stitch below, the very first stitch on my needle? I'm going to pick up the right strand of that stitch and place it on my left needle in the same orientation as my other stitch. Okay, so now I've got 2 strands on my needle, and now I'm going to knit that stitch with the very first stitch of my color of my next row, which is going to be white. Knit those 2 together, and now I've got 2 stitches together here, and that's going to pull up the color from below up a little bit and kind of hide that jog. So now I'm just going to continue to stitch in my color pattern to the end of this round, and then I'm going to show you how to do it on the second and subsequent rounds because it's a little bit maybe tricky to see what strand to pick up when you're knitting. So I will knit to the end of this round and show you how to pick up that stitch on the next round. Okay, now I've ended my first round here with the Fair Isle knitting, and now I'm getting to start round 2, and I want to do that same thing. We're picking up the stitch below, placing it on my left needle, and knitting those 2 together. But you notice that the stitch, the strands below is where I picked up and knitted those 2 together. So there's actually 2 strands of yarn here, and I want to make it clear on which one you want to pick up. The white one here is the longer strand, so that was the first strand we picked up on the stitch below. It's coming from 2 stitches, 2 rows down. That's not the one that we want. We want actually the blue one, which is the shorter strand of the 2. That was the stitch from the previous row. So we're just going to want to just pick up that blue strand, not the white one. See if I can just grab that without grabbing any of the white. There we go. And place that on your left needle. And those are the 2 stitches that we want to knit for the next start of the next round. So this one is knitting a white stitch, and then we're going to just continue in our pattern again to the end of this round. So let me show that one to you one more time at the end of this round, just so you can see very clearly which stitch to pick up there. Okay, we came to the end of the round again, so let's take a look at that again of which stitch to pick up. So you can see here that there are 2 strands that I used to knit that first stitch on the first round row below, And again, here's that one that's longer, that's coming from below, and that's the one we do not want. We want this shorter strand right here, which is the white. So let's put that on our needle. Here we go. And we'll knit those two together. Let's see, our next color for the next row is with the blue. So let's knit it with the blue and go on knitting with the colors going forward. So let me work ahead a little bit and see how this is working out for us with doing that little tip on that first stitch, and see how our join looks after a few more rows. All right, let's take a look at how this looks after I have done that technique on every single first stitch of every round, where I picked up that leg in the stitch below and put that on the needle and knit those two together. Look how much better. Here's my first stitch here. Look how much better that looks, where the zigzags and the diamonds are now lining up, and that looks so much better than when you see this jog. So this is a great technique to do. It's not difficult to do. You want to make sure that you do it on every round, and then you have a much more polished piece at the end. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to receive notifications every week of knitting tips and techniques, fun stitches and patterns. And be sure to watch video 1 and 2 of this Fair Isle knitting as well, to give you some introductions and to learn how to catch those floats in the back. Thanks for watching, everybody. Happy knitting.